today we're talking to director, screenwriter, and visual effects artist John Lechago. And I would like to list some of the credits that he's worked on off of IMDb, and we're just going to see as a fun game if we can guess what genre you might be interested in, okay? So, we have Blood Gnome, Bio Slime, Killjoy Goes to Hell, Killjoy's Psycho Circus, and Feast of Fear. So, John, is it fair to say that you might be interested in horror?
That was a fair guess, yes.
Yeah, just fair.
Yes. Fair guess,
It is
yes.
not an excellent guess. It's just fair.
You said fair.
Yeah.
It's an excellent guess.
Okay.
But it's not accurate.
Oh, it's not accurate?
No.
Thank you so much for calling us out on that, though.
Yes.
Okay, well, now I have to redo the intro. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm so excited to talk to you. What horror? Like, what genre are you interested in? Because I thought it was horror, and it was
I
wrong.
love horror. I do. I
Yeah.
also love science fiction. I love fantasy.
Ooh.
I love action films and martial arts films. I love a lot of genres.
Okay.
So I think that
We
if you
pigeonholed you.
well, no, not really. If you actually really look at my films, they're not really horror films. Some of them are creature films, but the Killjoy films are really, and I've kind of taken them in that direction, fantasy films. So it's just a little bit deceiving and stuff. But I do love horror films.
Yeah.
I do. Mostly monster films. Just to because there's a lot of subgenres in horror. But
Yeah, the creature
I
aspects.
love creatures.
Yeah.
Which to me is fantasy, and science fiction. It kind of melds together.
So, your favorite films that you like viewing as well, also in the creature category?
Creature, science fiction, but I also, love fantasy films. I love a lot of genres, but I would say, if anything, I'm kind of skewed towards the genre films, being fantasy, science fiction, horror, and action.
Yeah. Okay, well, we have so many questions to ask you today because you're kind of like a jack of all trades. You do it all. So there's a lot to cover. But just to begin, because we're already there talking about like favorite films and like the early days of how you were maybe attracted to filmmaking in general, were there some films early on in your life that you saw and kind of inspired you and opened your eyes to this wild career path you've chosen?
The one that stands out, that was like a punch in the face, was Alien.
Oh.
And of course I'm old enough that I saw it. It was rented from the library, so it's already a beat up copy. Back in the days when we had watched television on giant vacuum tubes, the CRT televisions, and it was very low resolution, and still, even then, it was just stunning. The scope of Ridley Scott's vision, how big he made those sets. And that was his days before CG. Just and the artistry, how it came together, it just made me go, wow, that is amazing, and I want to do that. So that was very impressionable. I loved all the others as well. Anyone near my age will probably also say Star Wars, which I didn't know anything about when I went to see it. I think I was about 10 in the theater, and I had no expectations. I come in there, and then it was just like, wow, this is an amazing experience.
What a nice surprise.
Yeah, it was a fantastic surprise. I was kind of, what's the big deal? Because the poster to me looked kind of dumb. Sorry. And then I see the film and just going, this is just amazing.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Should I have?
It's a ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs. I've outrun Imperial starships.
So, it was films like that, and of course, horror films, but I have to say probably those two, as far as an experience that just made me kind of say that this is what I want to do, even at a young age.
Yeah, which they have like those elements that you're looking for. They have the creatures, they have the sci-fi, they have the fantasy, like all of those early ingredients.
Yeah, it's really just the scope of building a world, and it really blew me away. And I hope that someday I have the opportunity to do that. Work on a much larger scale. But it's to me, I think films like that where you just transport it to another place and you feel like you're there. That's the impression that I got.
Yeah. Are you watching anything right now, like streaming wise or?
The one I'm watching right now is The Extraordinary Attorney Woo, which is a Korean TV show about an autistic person that is working as an attorney, a new attorney. And it's a South Korean show. And I have to say, it is really, really well done.
이름이 참 재밌네요. 거꾸로 해도 우영우잖아요.
I mean, artistically, there are Korean companies who are doing fantastic work. And I thought it was interesting. A while ago, one of my mentors was director of, amongst other things, Reanimator from Beyond, Stuart Gordon, and he told me about 15 years ago he went to a film festival in South Korea and said they are really, really getting, turning out highly skilled filmmakers. And this Netflix TV show, because apparently Netflix put in the money, it's just so well done, technically on almost every level. It makes me crazy with a jealous rage. Just kidding. That's pretty good.
That's kind of what we want to be watching, though. We want to be watching things that are like, okay, wait, so I want to make that, actually. Like,
yeah. Actually, I can never make that, but I can appreciate it.
Yeah.
It is very different from what I do. But, it gets me teary-eyed when I watch it and stuff, and I'm all like, oh, God, I gotta watch the next episode and everything. And my daughter is like, why are your eyes so watering? Going, no reason. So, anyway. I think that's, oh shoot, I don't remember the title, but it was Ron Howard's last film about the rescue operation.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's called 13 Lives, it might be. 13 Lives.
I think you're onto something there. I think that's what it's called. But it was fantastic.
13! Brilliant! Brilliant!
Can we go out now?
No, not today.
Yeah, the soccer team of boys that were trapped in that cave, the Thai boys, Thai soccer team. And it was just so well done. I thought, really, Ron Howard is, I think he's actually doing some of his best work now. The acting was great. It was understated and it was a beautiful film.
But also the suspense and we felt like we were in those tight, closed spaces going through the caves, like that. I mean, talk about tearjerker. I was almost in tears at several places.
And we know that they were all rescued successfully. We know what happened, and yet it's still just so gripping and stuff. So I think he did a great job. Nothing else really stands out right now. I mean, some exciting things like maybe Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was done on a small budget. Some it was a little bit maybe too crazy in some parts and stuff, but it's the ambition is really amazing. They did for much lower budget than it looks. The acting was great. So I'm very eager to see what those filmmakers do next.
Look good.
But
About that movie was
yeah.
kind of incredible. They did a pretty good job. They did a fair job.
Yeah, you see their passion.
Yeah.
You see their passion, which is awesome.
Do you have this is like a good opportunity to come clean as well. We talked about the movies that you put on a pedestal because of their brilliance and everything like that. You can also tell us, are there guilty pleasure watches that you have that you might not expect me to watch this, but actually.
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if I really feel guilty about much stuff.
That's good.
Except, maybe the movie Van Helsing, which I think was done a while ago now, and it was a big Hollywood throw money at it and lots of visual effects, over the top acting and stuff, and this and that, and there's so much stuff I kind of like, railed against. It's like, just so blunt and crass and just in your face and blunt. The CG's not good and stuff. And I must have watched it 10 times and I realized, shit, I watched it 10 times. I think I'm having fun. Okay, dude, you win. Great.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You fucking did it.
Some say you're a murderer, Mr. Van Helsing. Others say you're a holy man. Which is it?
It's a bit of both, I think.
That is sometimes all we can ask for from a movie.
Yeah.
It's just let us have fun.
And I thought I hated it, and I guess not. So there's sometimes movies like that. Stealth was another one. Ridiculous film. Ridiculous. The autonomous flying fighter jet.
I am designed to destroy the enemy, just like you.
And just like me, you got orders, and right now your orders are to return to base. Good pilots follow orders.
Negative.
You're not gonna disrespect me.
I must have seen it a bunch of times, and it's like, oh, it entertains. It kind of just does what it set out to do. So, hey, John, it's up yours. So, great. It's got my money.
Yeah, there you go. It's like sometimes in the times
Yeah.
when you realize, like, oh, wait, I actually really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah.
And speaking of really good movies and, just like what our expectations are when we watch movies, is there just kind of a blanket statement that you think of when you think of what makes a good movie?
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. I've been talking a lot with my, almost 10-year-old daughter about this. It's like she wonders what makes things. She has her favorites, and it's like, well, what's the difference? What makes these good? In every instance, I think a lot of times we're kind of trained to think of, well, the lighting here was good, or this, or the writing and stuff. But I'm going to go back a little further and say, well, you know what? The filmmakers, the people involved, were really passionate and picky and stuck to the guns and worked hard. So that's the general thing I'd say. If you have a group of people that are in sync, that are passionate, that will show through, despite what imperfections might exist. In some cases, in some films, they try and make a film too perfect, and that you end up getting a boring film. I like the films where they don't worry so much about being imperfect, but do their best to be artistic and passionate and exciting. You can see it on screen, and that's what I really appreciate. And I think those are the films that then are remembered years down the line. Some films, in 5 years, no one will ever remember them.
Oh, so sad.
It is sad. Not really. Actually, it's not really sad. Films that aren't really remembered, there's a reason for that.
They have a time and a place, and that was their time
Yeah.
place, and now.
They don't have the spark, the extra that gives them, that makes them memorable. I think that's sort of like survival of the fittest.
Ooh, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there in the business of movie making.
Yeah, actually, you shouldn't look at it this way. It should be a competition either. And that's, I think, that what the corporate film industry is its problem. It's like they're thinking too much about competition rather than doing their thing, letting the artists do their thing. If you let your artists really perform to the best of their ability and do what makes them most excited, you'll get that audience. Yeah. You'll get that audience. It's not a competition like, well, the audience is either going to see this one or that one. If they're both awesome, they'll see both.
Yeah.
I'll see. If they make me 100 versions of a genre film and story that are all great, I will see all of them. That's not a problem.
Yeah, if you have enough time.
Yeah, I will have time. Absolutely.
Yeah, we all have our list of like, okay, I have to see this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one.
Yeah.
Like they're all on the list. They're all going to be watched at some point because they all deserve viewing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've got a really pretty amazing, and not afraid to say it, amazing DVD collection because I love films, and I've watched most of them multiple times. And it's like, oh wow, I've seen a lot of films.
Which directors are in that DVD collection that you feel speaks to like being able to have artists tell their stories and have that come through, and we're thinking
That's probably too long of a list.
Okay.
So I will say, and one of my favorite directors, I want to say, because it's been a long time since I've seen the cover, and my memory isn't that good with names, even the famous ones.
We can do this quiz game.
Right.
Though. Like you
Okay.
kind of like softball it, and I'll try to hit it.
Okay, Sally Potter.
Sally Potter.
And she did the movie Orlando.
Oh no, I haven't seen it.
It is a beautiful film. It is an amazing film.
I
It is so, and it stars Tilda Swinton.
Oh,
Was
she's
amazing.
incredible. Yeah.
Well, was one of the thing that broke her out. So if you're a Tilda Swinton fan,
Yeah.
watch Orlando.
Okay.
And it's an amazing, magical, beautiful film.
Oh.
Very artistic. I mean, I cannot find any fault with it. And I think she did one other film, that was it. So, but just from that one film, Sally Potter.
Wow.
Hi. The other one who was extraordinary. So I'm going to give you some of the odd ones. Peter Greenway, who did The Thief, The Cook, His Wife, and Her Lover. Yes.
Oh, wait, that was just showing at Arrow.
Yeah, Tim Roth. Young Tim Roth is in there.
Yeah.
Also, Gambor, the guy that played the head wizard, Dumbledore, the last one. He was in there as the thief. He was you hated him. Helen Mirren as well.
Iconic.
Yeah, so a great film. And The Thief, The Cook, His Wife, and Her Lover. And it's not a commercial film. Hollywood would never make that film. And then, of course, he did another one called Prosperous of Books, which is almost just visual majesty throughout the entire film. You don't really know what's going on and stuff, but you just shut up and watch,
Yeah.
So those are kind of like the films, I would say, that are worth checking out, And then the others, as I said, Ridley Scott's got to be there for Alien alone, not to mention the others.
In the canon, yeah.
Yeah, Alien alone. The Canadian director who's doing Avatar, James Cameron, of course. Right. I warned you guys.
That Canadian director.
Yeah, James Cameron. I mean, he's a little rough around the edges and tends to piss people off, but he is a genius. He is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think I should probably stop there.
No, that's an amazing. Wow, you kept it at 3. They all have
I kind
very
of
different
I'm
things
really
to offer. Or no, 4. That's okay though. But
I think we have to keep it there and move on and stuff because
No.
there are so many amazing people.
I mean, I wish we could have a whole episode of just you listing your favorite because this is a great list of.
Yeah,
movie
I'll go from the least popular, sure.
Oh, from the.
Yeah, or the least well known.
And what you talked about world building in terms of kind of what brings you into a movie and what draws you into it. Is that what made you want to enter the world of filmmaking? Is you wanted to create new worlds, or?
I was so young when I wanted to do it that I did not have I did not really think of it in such a concise way. I did not conceptualize it.
I don't know what we're talking about.
I knew since I was 10 years old, or actually even younger. When I was 9 years old, actually it was probably 9 that got me my first taste of being on set, because I was an extra in a Chuck Norris film called The Force of One.
He's shot full of junk, man. Must have lost control.
He never lost control. That kid was clean.
So at that time, because I was small and weird, weird nerdy kid, and my father knew I'd get beat up a lot at school, which he was right, they were after me. So he says, you're gonna go into martial arts classes. And I ended up at Chuck Norris's school back then when he wasn't really that famous. It was just, he had the best martial arts schools and a bunch of them, and I went to one of them. Second day we're there, we see an answer print of his first film called Breaker Breaker. And it was a total low-budget film shot for $250,000. And I'm looking around, and all the adults in the class were getting beat up by Chuck because he used his own students. I said, "Wow, this is pretty cool." So I started to think, well, this karate thing, because I loved the back in those days, There was every Saturday there was Kung Fu Theater, you know, on one of the channels and stuff, and we'd see all the Shaw Brothers Kung Fu films. From the Hong Kong Kung Fu films, Shaw Brothers, and I think it might have been Golden Harvest. Someone will correct me. And so I was thinking, this is great. So this is how they make films. That's awesome. And then a couple years later, Chuck Norris is playing an actual martial arts teacher, and he needed a kids class. So of course he's going to take it from the schools, and I had the chance to be on set. Now, it's a studio film, still low budget, but still a studio film, and I got to see them, you know, back in the old days when they had huge, you know, call them cans, basically. They just looked like giant buckets that shoot out tons of light and even more heat, you know?
Yeah.
And all those old-fashioned things.
Wow,
Cables that thick, everywhere, just for a little scene in a karate studio in the valley and stuff. But it was awesome. We're all sweating, and between takes, everyone's trying to, you know, fan themselves off and everything. We did a whole bunch of stuff. So I learned a lot about filmmaking that day. So that you get a food truck with delicious food, and you get to, you know, basically play around and say a bunch of lines. I was going, this is great. I now get it. You know, and there's a camera, and they're rolling it on the doorway dolly back and forth as we're doing our things. And I finally wrapped my head around it. So that's.
You were 9 years old.
Yeah, 9 years old, and I kind of understood the concept then.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
What an incredible experience.
Yeah, and I got paid $30. Wow.
No
way.
way.
I know, exactly. Now I'd be like, but you know, it's like I thought I was rich. It was pretty. And then pretty much I got cut out of most of it in the final film. But it's you see me for a second.
Well, hopefully that's
Yeah.
still, like, the cutting room floor was just, you know, is somehow framed somewhere in the world so that it can be immortalized. Well, we were going to ask you about, we're going to ask you what your first job in the industry was, but I guess that was it.
Well, yeah, that was it. But otherwise, as an adult after school and everything, I don't know if I really had one. It's a fuzzy line, because when I came back after going to film school, there was a writer's strike. So it's like, oh shoot, so much for all that pounding the pavement, going out and, you know, trying to get on crews and all that kind of stuff. So I actually got hired doing corporate video at a company, and finally decided, you know, I got some money together and made my first attempt at a micro-budget film, which was called Vermus. It was just this creature film and everything, and that is unfinished, totally tanked. And then my second one was it's never seen the light of day.
It's not even like somewhere on like a reel,
Maybe.
hidden in the back of your closet.
Yeah, probably in a landfill somewhere.
Oh, man.
And stuff. I would put a lot of work into it too, but it happens a lot. A lot of people do that. A lot of people make films like that, and then a lot of people give up. But then I had another chance where actually I met a micro-budget filmmaker called Vincent Belancio, and I have to give him, you know, credit. And that was through, oddly enough, one of Chuck Norris's old stuntmen who were friends with him and stuff. And through that connection, he made a movie which was actually released on home video for $800. So it's like, how do you do that? So we made our next film for about maybe $10,000 all together, you know, and it was shot on video, standard definition, and it did quite well. It's called Blood Gnome. That was Blood Gnome, and it's you know, sold because back then you had physical media and Blockbusters was still around, so it actually got the investor about $120,000, you know, so it made its money back, you know, so that was great.
So you didn't you finished film school, is that what you said?
Kind of. It wasn't official film school, but it was two art schools which had great film departments, but instead of going for a major, basically I just took all the classes I could do because I wanted to take classes in not just directing classes or photography or this or that or writing and stuff. I wanted to take all of it. So between those two schools, I got your standard degree, but yeah, it's film school. It's just
You put your own version of what film school
I took the classes I
created.
wanted to take, you know, which kind of then gives me that jack of all trades ability, you know, and I was actually able to make a lot of use from it. and stuff. Not what I do anymore, really. I now, and if you want to talk about it, I'll tell you what I'm doing now and stuff. But early in my career, it helps quite a bit. And how it helps me now is in just understanding what other people in other departments do and what's possible. Even if now they're using technology which is much light years beyond what I learned back in school, it still gives me an ability to communicate with them a little bit more technically, I think, or understand when they explain things to me, and then I can explain what I want.
Oh, absolutely, because communication is like sometimes the hardest part. So as simple as you can get that and understanding what the other person is able to do.
Yeah.
And yeah. Okay, so we might be fast forwarding through some things.
Yeah.
But the way that you kind of made it sound is that you finished school and then you kind of immediately started making your own movies.
Yeah.
Was there an in-between?
Not really, no. I came out, I got some money from a friend who came into inheritance. Again, micro budget, but enough that we did the movie called Vermus, which was actually shot on 16mm film, but it was our first film and it was a disaster. So I had 2 actual disasters in my career. We'll talk about the other one a little later. And that was one and stuff. And then I started working corporate video, but we were able to get together a small budget and use the equipment from that company. The boss let us do it and made the first film that was released. So that's kind of, and then I just kind of stuck in micro budgets for a while, filmmaking for a while.
Yeah, but you didn't let your first movie being a disaster even let it get you down.
No.
That's a challenge.
It got me down. I think that young filmmakers out there, or people who want to be filmmakers, have to, what they have to understand is that it'll get them down, they'll get depressed, they'll cry, they'll feel like giving up, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Just try again. Just keep trying, because it's just, there is a lot of pain involved in art. There really is, art writing. And that's okay. I'm not going to go boo-hoo about it and everything. I think, or say, buck up, or whatever they say, But, buck up or stuff, or don't be a wimp. It's like, no, it's okay to feel all those things. You're an artist and stuff, and you just, it's okay. And then you get up and you keep on trying. You keep on showing up and stuff. And you'll do a lot of work, actually.
Yeah.
So.
What was the biggest learning lesson that you were taught at the very early days of your career? I mean, was making that film and not having it go the way that you wanted, was that one of the greatest lessons you could have asked for in terms of what happens?
I guess so. I think that I probably read it in a book. I forgot what director it was. It may have been Altman that was quoted in the book saying that you're going to go out and make your film, you're going to make all these preparations, you're going to write a script, you're going to have this amazing idea of what it's going to be, and then you make the film and you finally finish, and you're just at the end of your, end of your rope and just on the edge, and it's going to be something completely different, and you have to accept it. And I was like, okay, that's great. Because Robert Altman made some great films, and so if he's like, if he says he does not end up with what he envisioned at the beginning, I'll be satisfied with that. So I'll know that there's a certain, you have to kind of approach it that way, that what you end up might be different and still completely satisfying, but it's probably going to be different.
Yeah, it can completely change because you have so many, you have the actors, you have the, different people with everyone is adding something different to the melting pot that then becomes not what you were originally starting with.
Even if you're a writer-director, you're ultimately a small piece of that production. And your biggest job at one point is really just to try and coordinate and keep everyone together and work in the same thing. You're sort of like a conductor of an orchestra and stuff. You're just trying to keep them together, and if you can do that and produce, then you're doing a good job. But you're working with so many other artists. If you try and become a control freak, you're actually shortchanging yourself. You're not going to get good results. You really do have to let people do their things, and if they do something different, but completely satisfies your needs at that time, you should be happy. I am always very thankful when people give me something that I don't expect, but if it works great or better, then that only helps me.
Yeah. Was there anything that surprised you about the industry when you first got into it? Like, I wasn't expecting that, and
I don't know. I think because I had so little understanding besides my experience on the set when I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
And I knew that was a long time ago that I kind of did come in pretty, cognizant that it's not going to be what I expect, and just kind of be relaxed about it. I remember visiting, even on a low budget production, one of my friends who was already working in art departments. And I said, oh, I'll help out, and I did a little bit of unpaid PA work and got some light bulbs for the art department and stuff. They said, no, place those bulbs by, and it was all like a restaurant scene, these little light bulbs by the little prop lamps and everything and stuff. So I placed one by and then said, okay, and then I picked it up and was about to screw it in. Said, no, you can't do that. I said, what, why not? Electrician has to do that. It's a different department, union rules. And I said, I can't screw it in, and it says, and they're like, no. So I was like, okay. And then another time, I was walking by, it's kind of like a little constricted area. There's a little corridor and stuff, and there was a C-stand, which is a kind of support for a heavy-duty support for lights or lighting equipment and stuff. And it kind of got in the way a little bit, so I started to edge it back with my foot, and I had a grip growl.
Wow.
And I go, oh, I got it. Okay, so that's probably just that, which I think is kind of funny.
But you're thinking, I'm being so helpful. Like, I'm just trying to help do a simple thing.
Yeah, I got it pretty quick, but I was just going,
Yeah.
So that was, but that's all just kind of funny stuff. Otherwise, I kind of with every task or department in making a film that takes any artistic talent. I've been a trained artist, since I was 9 years old. As well. I was traditionally trained in oils, and then went to a fine art school and stuff like that. So I knew from that experience, kind of like the process, how to do something artistically. So the rest of it doesn't really surprise me too much. It just kind of surprises me that still after all this time, a lot of people in power, the business people and the executives, don't understand how to get the best out of their artists. So there's that.
Yeah. Okay, so you're trained in more of a classical version of art as well.
Yeah.
Is that
in oil painting originally? I was an oil painter.
Is that what kind of made you interested in doing the VFX and getting started in something that?
I don't call myself a VFX artist, and I because there are people out there who are much better trained than me that have so many more tools. I think it gave me the ability to do it, and I did it because I could not actually afford a professional. Yeah. And then I started to work. Stuart Gordon used it as a way to introduce me to Charles Band, as a way to then eventually write and direct films for him and stuff. And I did a great job for them. But it was mostly using very, very simple techniques, very basic, classical techniques that we would learn in film school before the days of the computer, but now using a computer to do that, and also my artistic skills that I learned from painting. I kind of put those together and made it work. But as far as a skill set for an actual visual effects artist, it just pales in comparison with what they know these days.
Yeah.
So I'm not a visual effects artist, really. I just did it a lot.
It's hard to be a master in your craft at VFX and screenwriting and directing. Most people are a master in their craft at one of those things. It's kind of incredible, and that's why you're a jack of all trades, that you're able to do so many of these jobs.
I think it's because, and I think people can do it, is when you start to conceptualize what you eventually need on screen and understand there's a variety of ways of getting there. And if you kind of know that, then especially these days with YouTube, it's fairly easy to even just get the knowledge of some simple techniques to get it on there. Some people are so just wrapped up in the equipment. I remember back, especially in the early days, when digital stuff really was starting to become affordable, and everyone would say, "Yeah, I know how to use they used to call them programs, now they're apps. This program or that program, or we can do this, and or we have this kind of camera, and it's like, well, that's kind of all bullshit, because someone could have like the best camera kit in the world with the best lenses, and if they're an amateur, it'll look like shit. Or you get famous DP. If you give him a little, just a piece of shit, cheap camera, I bet you what he photographs and lights will look like $1 million. That's the difference. It all really comes back down to if you understand the concepts of what makes an image look good.
Yeah.
So
and what story that image is telling.
Yes, story. Just how to connect. It's like, are you trying to just? Are you trying to just jam your story with cliches and fluff and everything, or are you just trying to do something with a deeper meaning? But you could also swing all the way to the other side and stuff. Are you just trying to be too artistic and too deep and not understand that people love cheese as well? Good cheese is good cheese.
Oh, yeah, cheesy.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, it's good cheese. So it's just, I don't know, kind of finding that middle ground. Anyway. I'm going off the rails here.
No, I love it. Well, especially because you can talk about it from all of the aspects. So you've done the VFX for other directors or just for projects that you have done?
I did, for the past 10 years, almost all of Full Moon's visual effects. Only a handful of films that I did not. Otherwise, in all the films that Full Moon has done for the last 10 years, I probably did 9 out of 10.
Okay, that's a pretty good ratio.
Excuse me. So, and then some other productions, some other indie filmmakers, I've done visual effects for them as well. Because usually they just can't really afford a real guy, but with good results.
I think you're more real than maybe you're giving yourself credit for.
No, I guess they get a certain something from me. But really, I'm retired from that now, and I said I will consult with professionals. But I think the experience now gives me the advantage that I kind of visually understand the concepts, and I'm able to kind of express what I need them to get. And whatever way they choose to do that is up to them and stuff.
What do you feel like is the best communication for a director to use with someone who's working in VFX, or vice versa, in order to attain that goal?
Storyboards, drawings, and they can be horrible drawings as long as they show what you want, where, and kind of like for how long. It's just drawings are great. Visual, it just has to be visual. And then these days it's very easy to, what one of my comrades said, flavor test. Grab examples from other movies, from YouTube, from movies that you like, and say, hey, I really like how they did this, how they did that. If you give an example, then they can go, okay, not only do I now know what you want on the screen, I know exactly how they did that and stuff, because they have that history and stuff. So these days, there's almost no excuse. It's just like, grab examples from your favorite films of stuff that's similar, and then draw storyboards, and they will be so happy. They'll say, thank you. And then, of course, don't make the mistake of not having the visual effects supervisor on set. It's like, no, we'll get this stuff. It's like, no, you got to have your visual effects supervisor come and become best friends with your DP, and then they'll get the shots that they need, and it'll look great.
How much time does it normally take to see VFX from origin to completion?
So in my case, it's pretty fast, but in the industry, this is just in talking to friends who actually do work in studio level stuff. When they final on a big show, the VFX, they're close to their opening date. They work on those things last minute. It's because as the movie evolves and they keep on refining, and they keep on, and the editing process continues, they'll do multiple versions. These days, as far as visual effects goes, what the software and the techniques are almost identical between a small budget and a giant Marvel film and a giant budget. What makes the difference is how many times you can redo the visual effect and how big your render farm is. So the bigger films, the studio films, will have generally better looking visual effects because they have more opportunities to re-render it, to redo it over and over and over again. That's why a visual effect for a small film might cost, $500. But that same effect, that same shot, that actually does look better, but uses the same techniques and same software and same plates, would cost $10,000 to $20,000 in a studio film.
Yeah.
So that's really the difference these days.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's not really the software anymore. Off-the-shelf software can do just about anything now that what was previously, what's it called, proprietary software. It's just so powerful. So now these days it really is like, well, how much time do you have, how much money do you have to keep that artist redoing it, refining it,
Yeah. Is there usually a favorite part of that job for most people, or for you and the times that you've done it? Like
No.
a part that's most enjoyable?
No.
You don't enjoy
It
any
sucks.
aspect?
It sucks. And so all those VFX people, they're just crazy. They're just
Yeah.
It's like they just can't help it. They're like, you're gonna make an incredible shot, but at the end of the day, and they finally deliver, and this is going, it's really
Like the
an
amount of
insane work. It is nuts.
painstaking detail and like what
Looking at a
aspects?
screen, looking at numbers, looking
Yeah.
at layers, looking at settings and stuff, and we're wondering why your render just went off the rails completely and stuff, because you're missing one little setting or encode some punctuation or whatever. It's mind-melting work.
Oh, I don't
It's
think I
just-
could do it.
I don't think anyone can do it, but they have to.
Yeah. Is there a software that you've used in the past that you think helps abate those issues?
I'm not going to answer that. No, don't
Yeah.
think about software. That's
Don't think about
for
software.
anyone who's interested in film. Don't think about software. Think of just about concept and technique.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
That's-
it's
Yeah.
much better that way. It's much
Because
less-
once you have the concept and the technique, the software is just kind of the extra fluff that is. But as long as you
It's
have
just
the
it's just a tool,
Yeah.
and just like these days, the cameras are so good. All the cameras are so good. You can get great stuff out of any of them. So you don't really think about that so much. Now it comes back to, and the lenses are so good now. Almost even at very affordable stuff. It comes back to technique. Knowing how to do the light, how to compose your image, do the lighting, how to get your actors to do what you want. It's really great in that it just gets you back to concentrating about what you're going to see on screen.
Is there something that you would tell people to avoid when working in VFX? Like, is there something it's so easy to do this thing wrong, or so many people get this thing wrong, and so if you can, if you get that right, then it's gonna be fine.
I think so. I think I have to first again say I'm not really a visual effects artist. I just did a lot of it professionally for money. I know.
Right?
I know, but I never really intended to do that, and there is a difference between me and most other visual effects artists. So again, I'm going to answer that question conceptually, because this maybe would be advice for anyone involved in the visual effect, because it's not just visual effects artists involved, it's also DP, director, props, stuff, all those.
Sure.
So the mistake really is in not having enough preparation. You really have to get all those people working together. You've got to, there are things that one person will notice that say, okay, this green screen, we're going to have problems with it. Even if the DP is very experienced doing green screens, there are certain things that he might not, or she might not, understand that's happening in this shot that the effects supervisor will, because they know how it's going to, what needs to happen for it to be comped.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really it. It's like, if you're going to have a visual effect, I hate when I hear this on set. With Full Moon, I heard it a lot. It's like, we'll fix it in post. That is a terrible thing to say.
Yeah, people say that a lot, I think.
That they say it a lot, and it's a terrible thing to say. It should be fixed. It could be 5 minutes fixing it on set there, and then in post it could be 10 hours fixing that, and that's kind of irresponsible to say that.
Oh, they're just passing it down.
Yeah, they're passing it down, but it's going to cost. The shot will not look as good as it can, and it's going to cost the production more money. You know, so that's my biggest qualm. That's the biggest mistake, is just take 5 more minutes on the set to get it right. You know, and it'll make you look good too.
And see, that's maybe the perspective that is great for you. Like, I'm so glad you're sharing it, because you have the experience as a director as well as someone who's done a lot of work in post as well. Is that when you are directing, you're like, oh, I remember all of those hours that like someone said that we could do it in post.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like,
especially when you hear it in the audio track, you know.
Oh
fix the post,
no!
like,
It like stabs you in the heart.
it's
Yeah.
like, you know, it's like they're happy they're far away from me now. You know, being happy they're far away from me now. But you know, when film first started, it was so expensive to shoot stuff. You had to do a lot of stuff in camera that they really, really prepared well. And the downside of everything being so accessible and technology being so advanced now and having so many tools is a lot of times people do not prepare as much as they should. You know, but if you do prepare really well, like they used to, it will actually save you a lot of heartache. You'll get better looking stuff, and the post-production will go much faster and smoother. It's really worth it.
Those sound like a lot of wins, really.
Yeah,
it
is.
sounds like all great
But
things.
people don't really, but it's still missed, even on big films, over and over again.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Not on your films, though.
I hope not.
Speaking of your films,
yes,
I would love to start asking you some questions about directing.
Sure.
If you don't
Yes.
mind. Okay. So starting with like the most basic thing, I think most people have a pretty good understanding about what directing is, but to put it in your own words, what are the responsibilities of a director in this business?
For me, it's really, in pre-production is where you're going to be most creative, where you just talk to all the departments and get people just generating development and planning and getting your art department ready and understanding what your vision is. Directing in pre-production is already dealing with your DP and showing them examples of what you like and how you want to do things, so that they can get their creative input contribute that and basically take over that vision. So you don't have to worry about it on set. So your most creative time will be in pre-production as a director. That's when you need to get everyone literally on the same page, and send out as much material as possible. If your actors do rehearse, because I know some of them don't, but get rehearsals in so that you're not also just standing around all day trying to get your lines and everything.
And you prefer for your actors to rehearse?
I do, yes. Or at least know their lines, be completely off book. If they're the kind that doesn't like to, for spontaneity, at least know your lines and stuff. Because then when you actually shoot, in my view, it's a lot more technical. Like my, I know I'm gonna talk about one of my mishaps fairly soon here, right? And feel it in the room. But that was a great lesson, actually, on this subject. I was involved in a production once where I lost control on set, and then afterwards I made a couple of movies where I kind of did what I'm saying right now, which is you bring people, you kind of get them in sync, and you need to actually start getting your shots off. Like, I like to get my shots, start shooting within 2 hours of arriving on set. Mm-hmm. Something. It gets people kind of in the groove and productive, and working. And then if everyone's prepared enough, I also really, really don't like doing take after take after take, or angle after angle after angle. To me, at least my success has been having a plan. Knowing what shots I need. It doesn't all need to be storyboarded, but I have a certain system, which is repeatable and dependable, gets me the footage I want, but the people around me can easily understand it and stuff. So that you're productive. So you get the takes, you get the shots, you get things that will be very useful later in the editing room. And I have been involved in productions where people have directed and stuff, and it's just take after take after take after something that's not very useful, or they weren't very well prepared, or they weren't really that sync. So at the end of the day, for that day's shooting, they have enough footage to put together a kind of shabby looking scene and stuff. Whereas for a same level production that I would have done, I have enough footage to put together 5 scenes easily without saying, oh, I wish I had that shot. That's the difference. That's your mission, is getting that very usable footage that you can use in the editing room later, you know. So it's very technical, kind of like that way. As far as dealing with your actors, with the artistic, yes, there's still artistic, you know, input. You know, you have to, you have to give your approval for the lighting, for the art department and stuff. You have to sign off on all that and be responsible for all of it. You also have to be responsible for your actors and making sure that they understand, you know, what's going on. You know, when you're actually shooting for actors, I think like my job is mostly just giving them an awareness of where they are in the world. I'm not going to tell an actor how to do the thing. You know, that they should have. Out of casting that they're hired, you should have the confidence that they'll do what you need them to do with a character. And in pre-production, you have conversations with them about that and this and that, and then you let them do their thing. You know, hopefully most of the time if they're professional actors. You know, but what you really do, where you need to really guide them, you don't need to guide them, or in the ideal situation, with how to say something or how to act. You know, or you should do it like this. You know, that shouldn't be an issue. Where you need to guide them, because they don't know, and this is what you have to keep in your head, it's like, what happened in the previous scene? What are those surrounding circumstances that would affect this character's behavior? Mm-hmm. You know, if you give them that information, then they can adjust their performance. Like, hey, I want to remind you, in the previous scene, your buddy here just died and stuff, so for there to be some continuity in the movie and stuff, you're still feeling those effects. Oh, okay, thank you. And remember, in this scene, you haven't eaten for 3 days, you know, and that's the kind of stuff, that's the kind of, that's what you really need to do for your actors.
Yeah, it's helpful, because, like, I mean, there's like a saying, right, that theater is the actor's medium, and like filmmaking is the director's medium. And so for telling the actor who's not working in chronological order of a series of events, like,
that's exactly.
It seems like we did this like 5 days ago, but actually that just happened like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, in the movie, the previous scene was this exactly it, and you're right. It's because it's you're shooting it non-linear. You know, you don't have the advantage of it being like a theater piece where you're actually still feeling your emotion from your previous scene. You're really very well aware of that. So it's really just giving your actors awareness, you know. And then in post-production, I think it's probably just the easiest part, relatively speaking. None of it's easy, but you should, if you've done those first 2, pre-production and your principal photography, it should come together pretty well in post-production.
Yeah.
You know, so it should. Anyway,
yeah.
Again,
as long as you don't say to everyone on set, yeah, we'll do it in post.
Yeah. Well, that's just death. You know?
Yeah. Can I ask you? Do you want to talk about the worst experience that you've had on a set in terms of directing now, or do you want?
I think I have to, because, you know, certain associates, even, you know, in this show and everything, have, as far as my worst experience goes, and I've kind of shared this with, in fact, some of the people around us today, and it's not just me wanting to cry about it finally. It's like, it was a great learning experience, and essentially 2 things happened. I will actually try. I'll do one version where I'm not naming names.
Maybe we can bleep them out.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But and then one version where I spill the beans a little bit. The issue was that was still kind of early on. I thought I was getting a groove doing films with Full Moon and stuff, and then I was going to do one independently, and I used a producer friend of mine who I've known for years, but I've never actually worked with him. So we're like, yeah, finally we get to work together. I've never actually talked to anyone directly that worked with him before. And then after this whole ordeal, and it really kind of, what fucked me up was I lost control of the production. I lost control in pre-production. I allowed myself just to, because there are so many asks of me, this. So, okay. Well, he's an experienced producer, he must know what he's talking about, but just more kept on being piled on my plate to where I was actually not even making very good decisions myself because I was so tired. And then when we finally started shooting, again, it was, my first instincts were to do things certain ways, and he said, no, that's not going to work. So, he said, okay, fine, he must know what he's doing. And then everything that basically he suggested, the problems that came about were from those problems. So I was thinking, what's going on here? I'm really losing control. I don't really, understand. And I started to realize that then those problems that were kind of from his suggestions and the way that he wanted to put this film together, then he was blaming on me, and I was kind of taking it on, Again, it was like, relatively speaking, I was much younger than him, and so I was kind of beating myself up. And then came the day that we had our name actor, which was a friend of his, who came on set, and anything I've read before about diva behavior kind of paled in comparison, except maybe for stories I've heard from The Island of Dr. Moreau and sorry, what's the name of the actor? Who's famously
a diva.
A diva.
Yeah.
What was his name? You know who I'm talking about?
Marlon.
Well, yes, him, but then the other guy, the younger guy. Well, they had two on their sets. Val Kilmer, yes. So Val Kilmer and stuff. And I'm saying that now only because this is already a famous documentary made about the whole experience and stuff. Yeah. So maybe it was kind of in some ways on that level. And we just had him for one day, So, I even changed the script for his character, which was a mistake that I'll never do again.
He asked you to change something about his character? Or?
Yes,
okay.
In the script and stuff. And I think ultimately how it turned out was just uninteresting and boring and stuff, but it was how he wanted it to be. And so it's like, we're finally shooting it. He didn't learn his lines ultimately. And it's like, okay, well, we have a professional here, but he didn't learn his lines. We're holding up cue cards. He has so many demands, just demand after demand after demand, and it didn't really maybe sound as extreme as some other overt behavior you'd see on sets, but just the way it was, it's like deviously constructed for maximum effect on my mental health, and also the mental health of quite a few other people on set, and mostly because I think. Now, I will take full responsibility for them. I'm the director. That's what I have to do. So I'm not trying to pass it off on him. But I do want to kind of touch on something that was interesting. The producer wrote me a letter saying how disappointed he was in the film so far. Just blamed me up and down with everything that was going wrong, and then started to blame me for things that I was going to do in the future. And it turned out that all those things he said I was going to do, he did. It's like he completely just basically chucked responsibility to the side. I'm not taking any responsibility for this stuff. You're a loser. You suck. This and that, and you're never going to finish the film. It's like, okay.
It's
well,
exactly the kind of producer you want.
Yeah, it's like I was hoping to have someone who would have my back and actually. Saved me a lot of trouble and everything, and the complete opposite happened. I didn't realize how much stuff was being put on me, and then I was taking it on. Again, ultimately speaking, I'll take full responsibility for it. And in fact, the solution to that is taking full responsibility when you're director of a show, and taking control. And then the film, what I learned from that, and I did finish the film. There's a version out there, but we still haven't gotten it distributed. It's just kind of a cursed film for me and stuff. And I'll go back to the actor in a second. But my next film was then done with Full Moon again. It was another Killjoy film, and it was the most ambitious one of the set that I did, with of course the least amount of money. Because when you do films for Full Moon, if you do a great film that performs really well, they'll give you less money and less time the next time around. Yes. So which is why I'm no longer doing films for Full Moon, because eventually, I'll be having to pay to make those films in over a weekend. while keeping expectations high. I just don't understand the logic.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we did it. We pulled it off. We shot in one location that had a lot of sets, a cool little studio and everything. And I just decided to keep very tight control of everything. As far as decisions that had to be made. Again, like I was saying earlier, you let people do their jobs and their expertise. You let them, I let them accomplish what I need however they want, and accept, work if it satisfies what I need. Say, okay, that wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but it works. That's cool. Great. Let's move on. And so that one actually turned out to be the most successful one in the it's called the Killjoy series. Killjoy the Clown.
Yeah.
That's franchise from Full Moon Features. And I think I was still very just determined to not lose control. But so that in that way, my experience with the movie that I produced myself called Feast of Fear really just taught me that lesson. Especially when doing very, very low budget stuff. So things started to fall apart when I would kind of do things that were against my instincts. And even though I, at the time, trusted him, I should have actually stuck to my guns, because as far as micro budget stuff goes, I've had a lot of experience and I know how to do a lot of things. So I should have done it the way that I've always done it, this thing. And he's, no, you got to do this. And I go, oh, okay, and then that fell apart. At some point, even when you're collaborating with everyone, you got to be if you're directing, you have to be the person that says, okay, that's great. Oh, from years of experience, absolutely, I understand it, but no. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that is a better idea. Okay, I completely understand your logic, but no. It's really, if you're going to take responsibility for everything, then really, if you feel that you need to do if I'm going to get blamed anyway, it might as well be exactly from my decisions.
From what you wanted in the first place. Were you just trying to make other people happy to be working on this? Was that
No, I think it wasn't exactly that. I think it was still just some naivety at that point, because I never really worked with anyone that had as much experience as that producer. Because he did have a lot of experience. Which was a little bit deceiving, actually. And so I kind of just deferred a lot to what he was saying. And I think that even if you work with someone really experienced who might have done a lot of stuff and is famous, when you're directing, you really do have to just take it on, yourself. Because when stuff starts to happen, stuff starts to go wrong, and you're in a position that's like, well, shoot. It's actually better if something gets fucked up, which I completely believed in as my decision, than something getting screwed up that was actually a decision from someone else who I said, okay.
Yeah.
That's a bigger problem, actually. If it's completely my fault, my decision, I also have a pretty good idea of how to handle it and what the solution is, the other thing about working with someone who's very experienced, I made the mistake that I actually, for the last few years of his career, did not speak to anyone who has worked with him on set. And later, when he did start to talk to other producers or filmmakers, it kind of came out that he just leaves a swath of destruction in his wake. Oh, wow. Productions that basically got into trouble because of what he did, and basically him taking on responsibilities and then dropping them, and it was more than one person that tried to warn me, but they maybe should have warned me with some specifics. And then when I went back to them later, it's like, oh my God, wow, okay, so I kind of.
But there was a red flag at the beginning. You were like, oh, but let's try to do it anyway.
Yeah, so I think it was naive. I've known him for years in post-production, working on some other stuff, and sure, he was a little bit quirky and weird, but so am I, But there wasn't any chance for conflict. But when we were on set, it was much different. So again, I'm not actually trying to kind of brush the blame or responsibility off on him. I'm just telling the story. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, if you are a responsible director, you do really have, even if it's not exactly unless it's outright someone just coming to, jumping onto set with a baseball bat, and busting everything up. You can't really blame other people that much, because at some point I think that you have the power to stop it, So I take that,
But you gotta slam down the hammer sometimes.
And that's a good thing. That you need to do that. You need to control all these creative people, and there are a lot of creative people and artists on your set that you're gonna have some crazy people. You're just gonna have people that need to be controlled. That's the nature of a lot of creative people.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned an actor as well, and one of the things that I wanted to ask you was when it came down to casting and then being in that situation where someone you cast isn't working out, and how much do you know your actors before you go into a project?
Yeah. Again, this actor was a personal friend of the producer, and he was a name actor, recognizable name and everything. And so the producer said, he's fine, he'll be great. I've known him for years, we're great friends and everything. But then he was a nightmare on set, even to this producer, So it's like, well, unless you're at least very, you don't really have an idea of what being great on set is, you might be kind of, very stupid, or you just lied to me, And I think he lied to me because, at one point the producer said, yeah, he can get this way. And I just go, oh, so he can get this way. Fuck. If he just even mentioned just a hint of what problems he might bring, I would have said he's not worth it.
Yeah.
We
he might be a tyrant. Maybe you don't want to get with it. Yeah.
This literally, because especially with the micro budget or small budgets, or even with big budgets, things like that can really put the entire production at risk. And that's I think when we are working with these small budgets, a lot of people they're giving so much of themselves for not enough compensation. It's really just an opportunity to work. So you owe it to them for it to be a good opportunity and to get as much out of it as possible. And days like that, you're just working in reverse. It really did, that by itself probably caused a lot of the problems with the production. But then the rest of it was dealing with this producer who should have been helping me and was actually adding more to my plate, so from those lessons, I actually now know how much I need to put on my plate. And
understand though, and this is something that, it's probably differs from industry to industry, but it's something that is so unique about the film world, is that you work with someone, you have a terrible experience with them, and then you're not allowed to say those names afterwards because you don't want to be known as someone who talks badly about other people, but at the same time you want to warn other people and say hey, you don't want to work with these guys if you want your project to go well for everyone involved.
Okay, well, a story like that, if you want an analog, was, I forgot the director, but that really amazing director that did Name of the Rose, such an amazing European director. When he was doing Name of the Rose, he had F. Murray Abraham back, and F. Murray Abraham just won the Academy Award for Amadeus, and he said that made him into a monster. He was a huge diva and made his life miserable on set. And he actually, F. Murray Abraham, and I'm saying this because it's out there, it's in the director's commentary and everything, said, for years and years, they would make me wait. Now I'm going to make them wait. It's like, well, dude, that is just the craziest thing I've ever heard,
It's a bit of an ego.
Right. His ego blew up. And the problem is, and the director put it very well, he said, the problem is that directors speak to each other. So F. Murray Abraham really didn't get very many, even though he is actually a great actor and won an Academy Award, after Name of the Rose, he really didn't get very many roles. And because directors do talk to each other. It's this person might be great, but if they put a production in danger, whereas in the same commentary, he talks about Ron Perlman, and he's just in love with Ron Perlman. He's like, I love Ron. He's so generous. He made up that weird, screwed up language, himself, and worked on it and gave you so much. And the thing is, consistently, directors say that about Ron Perlman. You know, so where he kind of started off as what you might think is an obscure actor, you know, in a lot of B movies, he's like, no, he's actually been in quite a bit of films now and gets consistent work, and directors love him.
Yeah.
You know, he understands about being part of something and contributing to it, not just the acting or his name, but really everything, you know. Or Clint Howard, actually, in this horrible production, I have to say, I'll give someone some kudos. Besides everyone else, you know, including all the camera departments who were wonderful and generous, you know, and helped me out of tough situations. As far as talents go, name actors, Clint Howard shot a few hours with us, and he was a completely the opposite. He was he contributed to the production. He was very generous. It was so easy and almost relaxing shooting those scenes with him, you know, because he understands that, you know. He understands what really filmmaking is, you know. It wasn't all about him.
He was part of the team.
He in fact helps with camera department with sandbags and the tripod, and he's like, I don't care, you know, just you know, we're making a film here, and so it's like, wow, this is great. Even though we were not allowed to look him straight in the eyes. Just kidding. So here's a quick Clint Howard story. When we first meet on set, he first gathers producers and me and a couple department heads around. So, okay, first rule: no looking directly in my eyes. You know, and we're like, huh, for a couple seconds, and he goes, just fucking with you. Come on, let's go, let's get to work. You know, and that says it all. It's like, you know, it's just like, you know, it was a great icebreaker and pretty funny. You know, so it's not just that name actors do that, because he was wonderful, and the other guy was I wanted to stab him in the neck. You know?
But you didn't.
I
right?
didn't. I actually moved away.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Like, directors in the future should know.
Yeah.
When you feel like stabbing someone in the neck, just don't.
Just absolutely how horrible it was.
Yeah.
So again, that was part of that production, and then but we did finish it. When you have all those problems in the prep and in the shooting, again, then what that does is it makes your post-production period very long. So I had a long post-production period because you could see it in the footage, in the acting of the other actors, and just kind of how everything came together. And I missed things as a director, missed shots and stuff. So it just took a lot longer to refine it and kind of try and get it together. But we did finish it, and eventually it might actually hit a streaming service.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it's great, I guess. I kind of.
Well, that there is a happy ending, and then there's a lot of struggle, and then you did what you could, and then it's going to come out the other side.
Yeah, maybe. Probably the best. What I got most out of it is you just continue working. You go on to the next thing, and you work. You know, you kind of like say, you know, well, I survived. That was depressing. You know, it costs, you know, my producers a lot of money and stuff, which will probably never get recouped and stuff. But you know, which, you know, we talked about and stuff. But then you continue. You move on, and you do good work, and you just have to kind of get past it. You know, it is a great question. What keeps you moving, and keeps you going. And I think that applies to art, an aspect of making art, because you will have failures, sometimes big failures. And one time in art school, I had a performance art piece that I was putting together for a class, but a lot of people came to see it, and it just fell apart. And it was terrible, terrible, terrible. And I swore, I'm not going to do art ever again. Screw this. I'm going to do something else. I quit art. 3 hours later, I was kind of like putting together plans for something bigger and better, you know. So I said, I think I must be insane and stuff. So maybe it's insanity. And what I mean by that is maybe it's just a compulsion to want to make stuff. I don't think I have a normal brain, so I'll be completely honest with that. You know, a lot of stuff bops around in there, and I can't help it. You know, and stuff. So it is, and I don't. It's not a kind of psychosis or anything. It's not separate voices or whatever that I hear and stuff. It's just the stories and characters that continuously play, and art and visions and stuff. And so I really, as far as my brain goes, I need to get it out there in some sort of solid form, and then it kind of leaves my brain a little bit, actually, honestly speaking. I think that a lot of creative people think that way. They really see things in their brain, beautiful or maybe ugly, or maybe so ugly it's beautiful things, and they just want to express it and get it out and stuff. I think really a lot of artists who are very passionate about their work operate like that. You know, it's not just the satisfaction of seeing something beautiful or even making money. I don't think it's that. It's really just wanting to work, wanting to create. You know, and so I think that's what kind of keeps me going. Is really just understanding that it's just a process, not piece by piece. It's not I do this work of art or this movie or this. It's just a continuing process being a creative person. And even though there's a lot of pain involved, a lot of hard work, ultimately there are times that I do love it. I really feel happy. Like on the last couple of sets, you know, sure there's some very painful times, but I really do feel happy on set and everything working well and coming together. You know, as basically I feel, you know, like I'm in a groove. I feel like I'm in my happy space, like I'm being productive. You know, and there's no romance in that. I remember another naive producer, friend of mine, you know, from the early days, who kind of wanted to get on this journey with me, and he kind of had a much different vision. He said, "Oh, the romance of filmmaking." And I go, "Really? I don't think it's going to be like that." And it wasn't. The second it got ugly, he was gone. You know, it's like, no, it's not all that, really. But the people who, you know, filmmakers I know who year after year are in it, and are in it for a lifetime and doing it, they're just really satisfied with what they're doing. It's not a romance thing, it's not a beauty thing, it's not, you know, and there's a lot of hard work, but I think we love it, you know, somehow. It's not the pure sugary love. I think it's just like, you know, maybe it's a little bit of a community, a little bit of comradeship, I think so. I mean, I'm just going to guess. So this is something to ask, you know, other people. I think, despite the certain failures, it's really God. I just find it satisfying. I think it's satisfaction. I just find it satisfying, just working, just creating and getting it done. It's not even about the finished product.
Yeah, like it's a bummer that it didn't work out, but wow, it was still an adventure to be like making something and telling a story. And
yeah, I got to meet a lot of great people. We went through a horrible experience together. So there's that.
Trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding and stuff, but I have actually made friends. We did do something, you know, it was an accomplishment in many ways, so it's more like an experience. And then I think the rest of it, I think there's just a certain kind of person that really does make, you know, really for real makes the films, because it's not, you know, glamorous. I guess that's probably a better term, glamorous, as a lot of people would like you to think it is. It's a lot of times just really, it's late nights, it's, you know, a lot of stinkiness, it's a lot of, you know, a lot of caffeine, just a lot of headaches, a lot of drama behind the camera. So I think you have to be okay with that. And maybe that's not so different from, you know, other normal jobs, which I really don't know. Well, not normal jobs outside of this industry, and which I don't really know that much about, but I think they probably have all that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Behind their cameras is a lot of drama.
Yeah, I think in an office, or if you work in an office or restaurant, you know, maybe the great thing about filmmaking is that after a film is done, you're done. You can take a break and you go on to another crew, another production and stuff.
Okay, but how many, you know, office jobs are people working with each other for like 14 hours a day? Probably not.
Not in this country, you know. But you know what? I think, and if one of the things that really bugged me about that film, my nightmare film, it's not really the way that I like to shoot, because under normal circumstances, I really only want to shoot 10 hours in a day, you know, and get everyone there 12 hours max or less. And because the thing is that if people have enough time to go home and go to sleep, they'll wake up the next morning fresh, and you'll actually get more shots in.
Oh,
you
sure.
know, and I had the wonderful opportunity to sit across the table from. Oh, there goes my brain again with names. You know, Roger Corman at a wedding. Actually, he was sitting across the table. Roger Corman and stuff, and yeah, it wasn't assigned seating and stuff. But I said, "Oh, Roger Corman's here at the wedding." Okay, bam, bam. We're sitting in front of the table with him. I really just let him instigate and stuff because I wasn't gonna.
You played it cool.
I did actually. It was some of my best work as far as trying to get to talk to another filmmaker, especially Roger and stuff. And so I'll tell you real quick how I kind of got him interested in talking to me, because otherwise he was just like enjoying himself and wasn't really that interested in talking to us. Said I kind of like we're talking to Roger. I said I really enjoyed Death Race 2000 and stuff, and he kind of reacted like, oh, okay, like, you know, yeah, I've heard this. Then I said, that's a really subversive film. And kind of looks at me and says, yeah, it was. That's right. And we had a great conversation. It was like, I see actually what he was trying to do, you know, because he actually did try and make a film about social commentary that was starring Captain Kirk. What's his name?
William Shatner?
William Shatner,
Yeah.
yes, a long time ago and stuff, and it bombed, and he got so much flack for it and everything and stuff, and he said, no, but I still want to make films like that, so I kind of have to just hide it and stuff. So I kind of thought I'd mentioned that, and he loved it and everything. So yeah, that was, you know, if you really look at what that film's about. But another thing we talked about production, and I said, look, I'm really, I'm working with Charles Band now and working on these productions, and I've had, at least for the first two films, enough luck that I could get everything shot in 10 hours, and then people pretty much 12 hours max on the set, 1 hour before we get our first shot off, and then the 1 hour wrap and stuff, and I think I get better results. He said, that's right, that's how I used to do it, So lately there's been this thing about people regularly being on sets for 14 hours or more, and just really suffering from sleep deprivation. And I think that's nuts.
And not having outside life, not having being
You're-
able to say hi to their families.
You're actually going to get less quality work from these poor guys who are zombies, and so, again, as much, whenever I can say that, it's like, have some decent, working hours. You will actually, if you're well prepared, be more productive than having your crew work 3 more hours in the day. It's actually more productive to let people go 3 hours earlier, but then shoot, shoot much more the next day. And I can't wait to try and continue to do that again. So I don't know, did that answer that question?
Do you have any tips for if you shot a project and it didn't shoot the way that you have planned? What is the best way that you can think of saving it in post?
I don't know. Seriously, and I've had other friends. One of my very good friends. I don't know if y'all know him. Sean, maybe remember him, Tom Devlin, who did creature effects for Feast of Fear. He and his wife did a movie that was mostly shot, almost all finished, but it just wasn't quite working out, so, and that has been the discussion, what can we do to save it? And now it's years later, and the actors look visibly older, and sometimes it's like, yeah, I have things that maybe might never see the light of day, and then the thing is, if you're a filmmaker, you just keep going, you make another film, I think sometimes you have to move on, and I forgot what director it was. I mean, I love listening to, what's called the commentary tracks on movies. That's the best thing about the DVD is a commentary track, director's commentary track, where they kind of like spill their guts a little bit.
It's such a good education.
It is, and sometimes it's philosophical. And when the director said, it's basically my films, I don't finish films, they divorce me, You know, the studio basically says, okay, you're done now. We got to roll it out, you know, or else he'll would have continued working on it forever until it's just dead, you know. So sometimes you just have to divorce yourself from it and move on to something else.
Do you have that problem with scripts as well, when you're writing scripts, of knowing when it's actually done?
No, I'm pretty good at it now. I'm just like, it's done. It's done. And that's, so
Okay.
right now I'm actually writing a screenplay. Actually, I can say it, actually. I'm writing a reboot to Cowboys and Aliens for Platinum Studios. Yeah, it's cool, but you know, it's now the rights have reverted back to Platinum Studios, so it's not Cowboys and Aliens 2, it's a reboot, it's a different version, and I was hired to write it and stuff because I put together development materials and they liked my writing samples and stuff. But I'm working with other producers and stuff who want all this stuff in there and stuff, and they just keep on wanting to add more and more and more, and I'm like, well, it's perfect now. But it's like, no, it isn't, but it's done. Yeah. You know, do you kind of like it now? Do you like it now? I was like, yeah, it's actually really kind of good, and we kind of like it. I think it'll play well. I was like, then that's it. You know, it's like, you know, so I'm actually pretty good at that now because I understand you can work something to a point where it's like, it's really good, and then just beat it to death. You know, happens a lot actually in illustration. This is from visual arts. A lot of artists will make the mistake of doing something rough sketch, then doing refining a little more. It looks really good. It has all this power, and then say, okay, now for the detail, and then it's just like a lump. You know, it's just, you know, full of pretty, you know, all this detail, but there's no more life in it. You know, so I'm actually pretty good with screenwriting at just like, yeah, it's done.
Does that come from sticking to an outline that you start off with, or does it come from just having a complete idea of what you want it to feel like and where you want the story to go?
Great question. You know, screenwriters have many different ways of approaching it, depending on how you think. I don't really do outlines that much myself, other than just a sketch of what the story is. Okay. And with a sketch is, and then I do a lot of research for assets like characters and environment and all that kind of stuff. So at least I have an environment that I know all these people, these characters can go around and do the thing. But as far as the story goes, part of my philosophy for screenwriters, and the thing is that a lot of people don't realize I actually have a lot of you know, experience and knowledge in screenwriting and stuff. I've done it a lot, and now I'm getting better gigs with it. Great, cool. But the things that have, and also I've got to give credit to Stuart Gordon, because we talked a lot about story and idea and all that kind of stuff. But this is one of the, as I get more and more jobs now with it, and the success that I'm finding with it, the key is this: you've got to keep it simple. Your story that you start off with has to be as simple as possible, you know, and it's not just coming from me, because Francis Ford Coppola will tell you the same thing. You know, he had a great talk at you know, Screenwriters Guild for America that I attended. Of course, he was remote from his you know, video recorded from his winery. As Francis Ford Coppola will do everything, you know. But his point was, you know, a lot of the stories, if you adapt a story, a lot of the best ones are actually short stories. You know, short stories are actually most of the time better film stories than novels. And I go, oh, okay, cool. So that was the beginning, and then I was just reading scientifically about complexity and thermodynamics and entropy, and I was just going, you know what? I think this kind of follows the same thing as far as there's a science, computer science, about entropy and complexity, and how a complexity builds upon itself until the whole thing falls apart and you end up with shit. So that's the same thing, information in a screenplay. What is the story you're trying to tell? Start off as simple as possible, because it'll get complex all by itself. Yeah. All by itself. If you think, oh, I got a really cool, witty, very complicated screenplay or story with all these subplots and this and that, characters and intrigue and this and that, you'll probably end up with a big pile of shit, because, sorry, I just have to say, it's going to be a big mess, because even, you know, I bet you that, is it Aaron or Alan Sorkin? Is it Aaron Sorkin?
Aaron
Yeah.
Sorkin?
Yeah, the Aaron Sorkin that wrote, A Few Good Men. That seems like a very complicated screenplay. I would bet you that he does not start off complicated, and stuff. Especially because the flow of his story, his screenplays is amazing. And I think there's a really just an elegant story there and everything. And the complexity happens all by itself. And that kind of complexity that starts to just kind of build up as you just develop the story is beautiful and everything. But if you try and build it in from the beginning, you lose the core of what your story is about, and it becomes a big mess. And I think that's, like Star Wars was so successful because it was actually kind of a very basic film, I think, like say, what other examples of just a beautifully simple story?
Yeah, because you could take one romantic interest meets one romantic interest, and then you put them in a different setting, and then you change like the time period, or you do like all these other things, and then you have like a completely different movie. But at the end of the day, it's just like, oh, do they fall in love, or oh, do they win the war, or oh, do they like? Is that what you're talking about? Like that level of simplicity, or is it a?
I think that's hard to define. I think you just have to think. Don't make it too complex. Don't try, because you can always make it more complex later. Get to make your point and move on. Maybe another way of putting it is like every time you add a new character, oh, I want this quirky character. That character will have an influence in that world that'll add complexity, because you have to take into account now. So just adding characters. Is this character necessary to your story? Is this, I think this would be really cool to see this scene and stuff. Okay, great. Is this really necessary, or is it now going to create continuity that you have to support throughout the rest of your story? That's unnecessary. It's just another more information burden.
What do you have any like writing practices that you do? Like you try to do a certain workout a day. You try to write first thing when you wake up, or what kind of? Okay,
for people who want to start screenwriting, this is the thing, and I will swear by it and stuff. Or actually, almost for any other art form, find your favorite screenplays from like the past 5 years, because screen format does evolve over time, and copy it word for word in your app. Copy the screenplay, your favorite screenplays of famous movies that you love, and stuff, because that's how you're going to learn to write in a way that readers what they will appreciate, or people. Because here's the problem with screenplay. It's not like regular prose. It's not like writing a novel where you read it and that's the form that's meant to be consumed. Screenplay is code. It's like written music. It's going to be interpreted by a director and a film crew and everything. So it's you have to understand that as a screenwriter. And unless you are the director that's going to be making the film, or one of the producers or whatever, your screenplay is going to go out to readers first and stuff, and they're expecting to see something that is professional. You have to be able to deliver something that looks just like top Hollywood screenplays. So how do you do that? You just get you'll get Academy Awards will have all the nominees for best screenplay of that year. Find the list. Pick a couple of movies that you've seen, so you have also some context of what they did with it, and copy it. Write it down, because you're going to start to subconsciously kind of see the rhythms that the writer employed, how they structured it, the syntax. Basically, it's just an understanding of the format, which is really hard to do, because again, it's code,
And there are, from what I've understood, there's a difference between writing scripts that you want to sell to someone else, or for someone else to make, versus writing a script that you yourself are going to film.
Okay, so basically, you can put it in two categories: spec script and shooting script. So spec script is a script that you that you write under for the speculation that it could be made. You know, it's like I'll write it first, then see if I can get someone to buy it, instead of a script which you're hired to write, and then basically you'll format it a little bit differently, which is for shooting. You know, and the shooting script is much more detailed. Now, a spec script can be a little bit looser and read more like a book. It's supposed to be entertaining to suck you in. However, you can be a little looser in certain ways, but you still have to have proper format, because readers or anyone who's used to writing screenplays, if it's not proper format, if you make it any more difficult than it has to be, they'll go psh. Now the thing is, at Platinum Studios, because I'm in development, basically a development executive there, people send me a lot of screenplays, and some which I don't read because we're supposed to actually be doing comics and stuff. But occasionally I'll flip through it real quick, and every time I've gone, what a slog. Bam, I wouldn't have looked at it anyway, you know. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. So that's the number one thing is for as far as an exercise goes. And it's like, but why am I rewriting everything? It's like, what you're doing is you're training your brain. You're training yourself how to do something, how to make something look professional. You know, like how they expect. So out of all these famous screenplays, if you can find, you'll probably mostly find the shooting scripts. That's what is available and stuff, which is fine. You can find the spec script, that's great too and stuff. But that's number one. The second thing is just also, as I said with everything else, keep it simple. Don't use big fancy words. Use a variety of words. Use different kind of maybe more active adjectives, you know, things are more interesting, but don't go for the 7-syllable, you know, obscure words for describing stuff. That's not what it's about. You have to, and then rewrite it. If it's your original stuff, your original screenplay, go back and rewrite it to where the description, when you're describing action, where you can whittle that down as small as possible. Keep it succinct, and also like keep it active. That's a little bit harder to describe right now, but basically you want to keep the reader really engaged and keep it simple, because what your goal is for the reader to read it about as fast as they would be watching the movie. So the movie plays in your head, you know. And so one of the last screenplays I did for a really obscure story that I was hired to do, and it was such a strange novel, but I finally did it. I put it together, and they actually sent it into a company that does breakdowns, you know, and this company has seen a lot of screenplays, and I was delighted when we had a conversation with the guy. We were talking about it because they make up a sample budget, and he said, look, I just wanted to tell you, I read a lot of screenplays, of course, you know, in what I do, and I think this is the best one I've read this year. It was like, wow, oh, great, thank you, and stuff. And I said, okay, cool, okay, get my ego down a little bit and stuff, because I'm actually a pretty shy person. But it's like, okay, what made you say that? What did you like about it? And it came down to say, well, it just read so fast, it was easy, and so I could see it. So I go, great, my strategy worked. It was really that. I made something that was easy to read, because it's not about the writing, it's about the picture that they see. So that's succinct.
Yeah, I like that. Easy to read, and as long as it needs to create that movie in their head that they say,
exactly, this
can be a movie.
Yeah, and correct formatting, because you have to look professional. I remember a writer years and years ago just wanted to show me this story. I said, well, it's not formatted very well. No, but it's the story. It's just, you know, it's about the story. And I just said, stop. If you're a serious screenwriter, you will learn the format. If not, then just don't waste my time, because that's the easiest part to do. Is learn the format, or write your screenplay and then rewrite it with a format guide in front of you to make sure it's formatted well, because that separates you from an amateur, you know.
Right. I want to ask a question about, because it's completely different from writing. We're taking a sharp turn here.
All right.
So, because you've worked so much with visual effects and with creatures, you've worked a lot.
But not a visual effects artist.
Not a visual effects artist. Just you did it professionally for like an
I just did it professionally on gigs and got paid for it.
But not a real video. Okay. But you've worked with a lot of makeup artists, I'm imagining, in order to create these looks.
Yeah, not a lot. Actually, I've mostly stuck with one, Tom Devlin, who is fantastic. But Yeah, but okay, I've worked.
Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah,
them
okay,
and what
yeah.
makes their like what makes them so great at what they do and how important that is to creating?
Oh, like special makeup effects.
Yeah.
You know, like physical, like gelatin and foam rubber and all that kind of stuff. Foam latex, all that kind of stuff. So what makes a great one, like if you're going to hire one and stuff, is I think so that's easy. And there's a reason why I've really just stuck with one after so many years. And, it was Tom Devlin of 1313 Effects, and he's lives in Las Vegas, but he has his shop there, and also Monster Museum. Is his leadership really? Because again, the person like that cannot do it alone. They have their crew, and he's able to. He is the director of his crew and get everyone together on the same page. And he might do the sculpture and stuff, but he has help along the way. He also needs help on set of people applying it and applying certain things, or doing the puppeteering or patching things up and everything. So it's a leadership with his crew and also preparation, because he and I will actively engage in designing the effects. And the first time we worked with him was on a movie called Bioslime, which is one of my very, very low budget films, but it came out pretty good because being so low budget, and first time we worked together, and he was so active and involved in every step. And then I drew like a sketch of the creature and stuff, and then he came back with a sculpture that looked exactly like that sketch. And I was like, wow, I didn't think you'd do it exactly and stuff. I mean, thank you. Wow, that's great. I mean, just amazing work. And then afterwards I said, but I want to collaborate with him. So then the next thing we worked on was the first Killjoy film I did, Killjoy's Revenge, and there was a monster clown played by stuntman and ex-professional wrestler Al Burke, called Punchy the Clown, which had a full prosthetic face and everything. And I drew a very, very, actually I didn't even draw a sketch. I gave him a couple reference pictures in the description, and he came back with this design, and I loved it. That's great. A couple years later, he said, it's like Punchy the Clown. I sculpted him exactly how you drew him. And I said, I didn't draw him.
Yeah.
I just gave you a description. He goes, really? Oh, wow. And I said, no, you're really, I'm kind of, when I give you sketches these days, it's the loosest sketch I can do, because I want to see your work, and so far, great. So it's that kind of like, active involvement, which I think is really makes a great makeup artist, makeup effects artist.
Well, it sounds like you found someone whose style really fits with your own aesthetic and what you're trying to accomplish in your movies.
Yeah, and the thing is, in his own movies, his own work, his style is different. But when we work together, the whole thing about collaborating is that you kind of come to agreement on a point. I don't want everything to be exactly my style, because I want to be surprised a little bit. But he also knows what I like and adapts. So we kind of help each other out that way. It's a true collaboration, I think, is what needs to happen.
Where can you be found if people want to reach out to you on social media or have a home address?
No, I gotta keep moving, keep ahead of them, one step ahead of them at every step. That doesn't make sense. Okay, where I can be found right now is I have, you can find me on Facebook. I do have a director's page, which I need to update. I don't have any websites right now, but I can be reached through Facebook. But also, if you send emails to info@Platinum Studios, I get them, or john.lechago at platinumstudios.com. I'll get them too, those emails. Because I do quite a bit there. And I suppose at some point in the future, I'm probably going to revamp my social media and stuff, which needs to be done.
Such a chore.
It is. I'm going to hire a professional, basically. It just needs to be done.
Okay, so you did an amazing job answering all of those questions. On top of all of the other questions that I asked you,
Okay.
I hope you don't feel like you've been beaten over the head with a million questions.
No, it's okay.
It's
yeah,
okay.
you were wonderful.
It's
you
been
were very
fair.
pleasant.
It's been a
Yes,
fair
it has,
experience.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Thank you so much for talking with me today. It was so educational, and you're brilliant, and thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with us. I really appreciate it.